Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today I wanted to do your Should You Buy video on the new Gatac offering, being the Gatac Syulen. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, this is a new starter ship from the Alien, more specifically xi'an Alien's spaceship manufacturing company, Gatac. Gatac, only known thus far for creating the ship that's still in concept, being the Raylan, which is a much larger cargo vessel, has now kicked a straight-to-flight ready entry-level ship for your consideration during IAE. Now, what is the Syulen, and is this worth your money? Well, let's dive into detail a little bit and find out. On sale now for $65 war bond, meaning new money only, or $70 if you want to use credits. The Syulen is an expensive starter ship. But if you consider where the Nomad was priced at $80, and that falls into what's kind of considered more of a pseudo starter ship pricing structure, it's not really that much of a stretch. The nice thing about the timing of this release is that if you were going to purchase now at $70, you're going to be getting the IAE sale deal, which means that you have the perk of special event insurance, which is going to mean that your ship is going to be insured for 10 years, which is basically as good as LTI in my book. Beyond that, if you don't have a game package yet, you can just spend $72.25, and you can end up with a decent ship, a game package, which is critical in your ability to actually play the game, along with 1,000 UEC starting credits to help keep you off the ground. The Syulen is a starter ship at heart, which means that it intends to allow you to do things like cargo, maybe a little bit of exploration or touring, and potentially some fighting. Now, how well does it do any of those things? Let's review the details and find out. From a pure numbers perspective, the Syulen is 25 meters long, 28 meters wide, and 16 meters tall while in flight. And in a landed position, it's 20 meters long, 22 meters wide, and 15 meters tall. Those numbers don't actually change a whole lot because the ship is just odd and very alien. You don't land on your belly like you do on most ships in the game that are of a human design. Instead, you almost land on your butt, almost like if you were think about flying a traditional rocket, if you were to take off and land with it coming back down, kind of like some of the SpaceX rockets are doing now. The Syulen is a single-person craft with an ability to carry 6 SEU of cargo, which if you compare to the other starters in the game is a pretty decent amount while not being impressive by any margin. With this ship being new in game now, we do know that we do know more about this than we normally would about with ships, right? It's not just concept, it's flight ready. So we are aware that it has an SCM speed of 200 SCM. It's got 1,200 meters per second being the top speed that it can attain in cruise. The speeds aren't blistering, but when you look at other ships like the Titan, the Mustang, the Aurora, the Nomad, this ship is in general just a little bit faster. On top of that, you have a pitch at 45 degrees per second, a yaw at 42, and a roll at 178. All of those are degrees per second, which means that this ship is very agile. With the Titan being faster in those movements in pitch and yaw, but slower in roll, and the Nomad, for example, is slower in almost all of these, while something like the Mustang Alpha is likely quicker in a lot of these core movements as well. One of the areas that I see the Syulen really succeeding compared to others in the class is with the fuel ability on board. The Syulen carries 438,000 hydrogen fuel and 2,900 quantum fuel, which absolutely spanks the Titan, which carries 90,000 hydrogen and 583 quantum. The Mustang only carries 60,000 hydrogen and 583 quantum, and even the Nomad, which is almost, in the name, supposed to wander, has 328,000 hydrogen, which is close, but the quantum is 771, which isn't really close. And that means that the tanks on the Syulen allow it to be better for range, which is going to be more important than ever for cheaper ships that are available as we get closer to the release of Pyro. So if you're talking about places that have a lack of availability for fuel and stations, then the range on the ship becomes very attractive. From a weapons perspective, the Syulen comes with 3 size 3 Panther laser repeaters, which on paper sounds like a pretty dangerous weapon loadout. In addition to that, you have 12 size 2 missiles, which is a pretty nasty payload on a lower level ship. Where things get a little more real than on paper is that the DPS based on stock weaponry is only showing about 540 DPS, which is pretty downright adequate at best. The Titan, for example, which admittedly has ballistics to add to its stock DPS, but that stock DPS is 1220. While the Mustang Alpha, a cheaper ship, is at 554. Even going back to the Titan, if you were to max out the laser repeaters on all hardpoints to make this a little bit more fair, you'd end up with a DPS at 551, which is better than what the Syulen is offering at 540. From a components perspective, the Syulen comes with 2 size 1 shields, Hex to be specific, which are Civi Grade B shields. You have 1 size 1 power plant, which is a Light Blossom Civi Grade C component, and this being my singular biggest concern about the ship. You have 3 size 3 laser repeaters, which draw a lot of power, along with 2 shields, which is going to eat a lot of power. And when you have the capacitor that's trying to make do with a certain amount of power that's coming through, you just don't have a lot of shots to be able to shoot out, which is limiting your DPS potential in the ship. Now, upgrading the power plant will help, but you'd almost hope to get 2 of these to get the job done, and that's not going to change on the ship. So I think personally, when looking at the ship, the power plant, along with the needs of the ship, this is probably my biggest concerning area for me. Beyond that, though, there is a single size 1 blast chill cooler, which is a Civi Grade D, and on the base loadout isn't a major concern, but if you were to upgrade to ballistic weapons at some point, that cooler is going to fail, so I would definitely recommend upgrading that pretty quick. The Quantum drive is a size 1 Foxfire drive, which is a competition Grade B drive, which is the middle of the pack when it comes to speed, but bottom 3 of the size when it comes to efficiency. So if you really wanted to maximize the effect that well-sized quantum capacity tanks that you have, you would really be better off upgrading to something like an Atlas. Or if you want to just go fast and don't mind refueling and you're going to be inefficient with a stock drive, you may as well throw on a VK double aught and just cook, because that thing is fast. That range, though, on the ship is enabled by having 2 size 1 quantum and hydrogen tanks, where most of the ships of this size have 1 each, so that's how the magic happens here. We already talked about the maneuverability of the ship, but the reason it is so quick in all directions is that it has an unprecedented number of maneuvering thrusters, which is more than 20, and I say more than 20 because we know the number of main thrusters is 6, so it seems to be lumping those together. But how they perform is a little unknown, as I haven't really had enough time to test and kind of count all the thrusters just yet, but there's a bunch of them, and that's what makes it fast. When it comes to durability, we know the ship has 2 size 1 shields, which is pretty standard for a size 1 ship, with smaller ships like the Arrow being outliers with 1 shield. But there's also hull strength, which will eventually represent things like armor. The Syulen has a total of 12,740 when it looks at your total hit pool of the ship, which is a pretty high number. It is important to remember, though, that in the current state of the game, there isn't always individualized break-apart numbers. So ships that have a lot of wings and superfluous items sticking off of it tend to have higher total HP because the individual parts need thresholds to break apart. And I assume that is and will be the case with this ship. The body HP is a better indication for me of how durable a ship will be, or is at least intended to be. And on the Syulen, it is 3,500, which is still high. I think that it is based on the fact that it is a larger ship than most starter ships, and being larger, it should take more damage before going critical. This being a weird alien ship, there also isn't a real defined nose hit point pool, which is typically the weak point on the ship, so you don't really have that issue on this weird alien vessel, which is a perk. Design-wise, the Syulen presents you with a ship that towers above you when you approach it, and it's almost monolithic. It feels kind of Sith-like. It's a very vertical design that's just different and very polished and deliberate. I think they called it out in one of the CIG's videos, right? But I think the internals of the ship aren't hidden like you'd see on a luxury ship where you have to flip a little switch and then something kind of gets exposed. It's almost just there biologically available. That was their selling point. I kind of agree with it. There's a certain gracefulness to the design. I still think it feels like there's panels and it's still obvious what you're dealing with. But overall, I think it's a nice experience. It's a changed experience from some of the human ships that we're used to being in. Entering from the exterior, you hit a button on the door and it opens. The doors really fold open. The stairs kind of hover and come out like you've seen on the xi'an Scout before. Once you're in an engineering space, which is sleek. All the walls have alien panels that fly out and expose the components and the weapons racks, while the airlocks and the doors are very alien. And you have a lift, an elevator, right? And that lift to get to the next level is kind of hidden in the floor, but when it takes you to that next deck, it's smooth and you almost have like a Jetson sound effect that takes you up and down between the ship. The next level up is a hab deck, which is small but simplistic, the way xi'an apparently like things. It's almost like being in a cave with some rock feel, but warmer than you might expect it to be, according to developers. I don't know that I got the warm vibe, but it's a cool, and it's sleek is an interesting word to keep using for the ship, because it's not the typical sleek, like designed intentionally to look luxurious sleek. It's more natural sleek. There may be a bathroom in there that might confuse you on initial entry because it looks a little bit over-engineered apparently. There is a silver sink on the side and a normal toilet that extends for human usage, leaving you to wonder why there's this extra silver thing on the wall. But that's apparently how aliens poop, and you just have to make sure you know that, or you're going to be washing your hands in the poop basin for an alien race. Once you go up to the cockpit level, as the developers have called the cathedral, there is a seat that presented to you almost like you're lying in an altar. You'll float up on your back into the cockpit. There's going to be a set of plates that coalesce behind you to keep you in place. And it just gives it a very alien experience. So that takes us to the should you buy portion of the video. The pricing with LTI for a 10-year insurance, including game package, is compelling. So regardless if you like this ship, it's a really good opportunity to melt what you have and rebuy it with good insurance, considering a lot of people purchased packages with 6-month insurance. Once you have this, you have a myriad of options to get what you actually want. When it comes to picking the right starter ship, my recommendation is always the Avenger Titan. So if we were to compare these two ships, the Titan has these perks. 8 SCU of cargo, which is better by 2. Has way better guns by default, and when normalized, it still has better damage output. It has better coolers if you choose to run ballistics, a much smaller profile when it comes to fighting, and the ability to land shots on you, along with the cross-section signature being lower, and with the ship being traditional, meaning human, which I think will eventually be relevant when it comes to finding parts and improving claim times. Where it lacks compared to the Syulen is the hull is slightly less durable, and it has way worse range with fuel based on the Syulen bringing the 2 fuel tanks for each type of fuel compared to the 1 on the Titan. The Titan also brings far less missiles than what the Syulen can offer. So if you're really favoring the ability of, lobbing some missiles at people to try and get away with your cargo, then the extra missile capacity on the Syulen is compelling. Beyond that, the Syulen is also difficult at first to lean into and figure out how to get in and out of hangars. There are 3 floors, which would make you think that there is a lot of room, but each floor is cramped. The Syulen has no ability to carry a vehicle, and while the Titan can't really carry a lot, it can carry some vehicles, so that is a perk. And if combat is your thing, and even if not, the thing is a very big target, and my assumption is that the more that gets blown off of it, the worse it's going to fly, and that is going to go downhill quickly. The thrusters, though, make it an atmospheric dream flying machine. It is a lot of fun to fly. So, should you buy the Gatac Syulen? Clearly stated, it hasn't knocked the Avenger Titan off the throne just yet, though it made a pretty good darn effort at it. Less cargo, more expensive, similar durability, much larger target, unconventional flight leading to learning new things, and inefficient use of space internally from a gameplay experience. Those are the things that make me say no. The ship is super cool, it's new and unique, which I appreciate, but that doesn't always make a ship the right choice. If you're looking for a way to get in with LTI and you like what the ship does, then I think buy this and consider the Nomad. Otherwise, find the Titan and be happy, because it does most of what this ship does, just a little bit better for now. So that's it for this video. If you guys have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for a lot more coming soon. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.